You're now listening to This Thing in the Mod. Guys, I'm going to start with thanking God that Mufa is not on set today. Anyways, hi everyone. My name is Uncle Don, and you're listening to This Thing in the Mud. Again, today is a special day. I've always said that whenever we have this thing in the mud, it's always a special day because we come up with very interesting topic for you guys to listen to. Once again, we've got Ebube who has returned to our set. Welcome up, Ebube.
Thank you. Always put the DK.
I put the DK. I'm sorry. I put the DK in the name. And then we've got a new guest on the show. Welcome, TJ. TJ.
Yo, what's going on?
Say hi to everyone.
Hi, hello everybody.
Okay.
Right.
In case you're not seeing TJ has a big afro. He looks like people from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah? And I feel like in that afro, there's lots of wisdom to spew today.
Well, I'll try not to disappoint in that regard.
Amen.
Don't do some foolishness.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into business.
Yes.
Right.
I was reading something on the internet the other day, and I came across a statement which read, "Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally." And in this aspect, men were not included in that statement. Ebube, when you listen to that, what do you think? What comes to your mind?
You should say men no they included for that statement. Because I think I've heard the versions like only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Men are loved provided that they can provide something. I think that's the full
So
version
there's
of
this
the
second.
There's a
Yeah,
second
so
there's a second line, there's a second stanza. And men are loved on the condition that they can provide something. Well,
You just literally rephrased it, so
I feel
yeah.
like it's not true. See, for a man,
Because let me come back to you. What about you, TJ?
So I think when I hear
Does it hit you when you hear that? No.
so not particularly, right? I think for me it sounds like one of those random statements that's made by somebody who's just, maybe caught up in a particular situation of life, and so decides to come up with some random quote that reflects their situation, but it's not particularly true. Right?
It's dumb.
I
knew this Afro thing was gonna work.
Now,
Shoot.
Yeah, sorry.
so for me, I think it's absolutely wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely wrong.
Okay.
Absolutely wrong.
It's gonna be really
I
interesting.
think that if you even look at it from a logical standpoint, right? Only men, women, dogs, and babies are loved unconditionally. Only those three are loved unconditionally. And the inverse of that statement also is that if only those three are loved unconditionally, right? There's no situation where any of those three is not
Okay.
without condition.
Let's put it into context.
Okay.
Why don't we say, or let's see it like this, that there are a larger population of people, okay, who love women, dogs, and whatever it is that we've mentioned unconditionally. So we're not saying it's an absolute, basically. Let's put it in that context. Do you believe in that?
I still do not believe in that.
Why?
I still think that to assume that men are not particularly loved, right? If you look at the ratio that you just presented, I think 80-20, right? Where most people love children, women, and dogs unconditionally, right? I think that to that degree, to assume that men are also only loved on the condition that they provide. I think that yes, from a cultural standpoint, right? And even at that's for me, I think some culture that's already fading, right? Because we are coming into a world of woman empowerment where there's no particular condition that is set as it was before that men must be providers, right?
Sorry to interrupt
no,
you.
please.
You are spilling some very wonderful amount of wisdom. You pick
Sometimes
it
we
up,
have to stop him here because it's too much wisdom.
No, you still come back. But then you said people, you made mention to that people. who are the people? The people, you are men and women. If you look at it in this world, we are just men and women. So when you say people will love a man or people will love women, it's still the same thing. It's just like man and woman, and it's like, do men now? Let's even break it down.
But I think the thing is
Do
like,
men love men when they cannot provide? Do women love men when they cannot provide? Let's just look at it.
okay, that's a good question. Do women love men when they cannot provide?
Same way do men love men? Now, when I'm talking about love, now I'm not just talking about in a romantic way. I'm talking like, okay, platonically. Do men respect and show appreciation to another man when he cannot provide?
In the larger scale,
In the larger scale, when it seems like, okay, this guy cannot take care of himself.
people would tell you, and then we'll bring it down home now. People will tell you in Nigerian context, if you don't get money, you're on your own. Yeah, we even have a song for it.
Yeah,
If you don't get money, hide your face. Do you get?
And guess who sang that song?
Who?
A man.
Baba is telling the truth, you know?
Yeah. So when we look at this statement, we usually look at it from a woman not wanting to be, loving a man in a romantic setting because he cannot provide. But even men too, we don't really appreciate and respect other men that seem like they are beneath our social class or do not have a certain level of financial freedom.
So I think I need to bring us back to the statement I was making.
Yes.
Only women.
I loved unconditionally. Yeah.
Now, the condition of that love is not particularly stated. So in some instances, it might be provision of, finance and other means. Right?
Why don't
If those conditions are other things, right? Beyond just because I think we're looking at it only from a point of view of who can provide as a man, right?
I mean
why don't we paint? Why don't we?
The follow-up statement is that men are loved on the condition that they can provide. Women, children, and dogs, even if they provide A or B or they don't provide, they still have a chance. There's still a chance for them to experience some level of love from the men and the women. Because when you say people, who are the people we're talking about? Men/women. But on the other side, men do not get to experience that amount of love from.
That's it. We're going back to.
They don't experience
But maybe we
love
could make
from
it simple
another
by
man.
coming up with scenarios
All right.
where we can say, okay, example in a war situation.
Yeah,
In a war situation,
Alright.
who are the priority persons who are going to be helped, for instance?
Well, so from
women.
what I'm saying, usually when is
No
a
dogs, though.
when is a crisis,
Bro, maybe not in Nigeria, but in other countries.
pets.
You have
okay, maybe
dog.
not dogs, cats, pets, anything that is considered as a
in
pet.
an emergency, when we are talking priority.
Exactly. I think that's the perfect example to use, right?
And so that's what I'm
Excuse-
saying in this situation, dogs then would not. Women and children,
Bro.
traditionally, right? But dogs, no.
Actually, maybe I saw it in a movie, but I've seen where there was a war and they were evacuating people, and the first people that went was the child, the woman, and their dog, the pet.
Well,
The men stayed back.
If you have a dog on you,
Depending on the
I
style,
mean, the trend is if it's handy, you can just grab your dog and move.
well, in that case, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know who would be.
But
in
you
a
can't
situation
just
of
grab a man.
life and death, right? You're in a situation of life and death, and there's limited space for people, right? And we know from the offset that some people will be left behind.
Why do you think
Why
that?
would the dog be a priority?
Okay, so I think we're hitting on this dog thing now,
Okay,
but
so
yeah. But let's stick with women and children.
Right.
Why do you think that whenever there's a situation, they say the women and children come first, get rescued first? Why do you think so? Why not the women, children, and men? Or why not the men and the children?
So I propose something to you.
Okay.
Regardless of the conversations that we've been having about equality and equity, right? I think an understanding of what equity means also means an understanding of the fact that from a physical standpoint, not from a mental, psychological, or whatever standpoint, right? From a purely physical standpoint, right? The stronger gender is the man in most cases.
You're gonna get into trouble for that. Yeah.
No, I'm going to get in trouble for that. In most cases, and I've not said in all cases, right? But
Okay.
in most cases, right? The stronger physically now, right, gender is the man. That's why you find, the men in more physically demanding, occupations, right? So that's one thing. Now, if you put that into perspective, right, when we are in a situation of life and death,
Okay.
right? If you look at it from that physical spectrum,
Okay.
children are the most vulnerable, right? On the flip side, men are still the ones that are still the strongest, right? And they are able to, in those situations, right, leverage their physical strength.
to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So women then become the next, if you are going to look at it in that kind of
Okay. That's
physical vulnerability.
yeah. That's scenario one. Okay. Let's spend another scenario. For example, in a family situation.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the man, the woman, the children. Who do you think takes priority in the home? Like when it comes to who gets something first? Who's been given attention first?
When you talk about attention, okay, now priority in terms of attention.
Yeah. For example, I could say, okay, who eats first in a situation whereby we don't have food? Food comes. Who's gonna eat first? Not the man.
No,
Obviously, the kids eat first, and then the woman eats first,
Yes.
and second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why is the man always coming on third?
Well, now, even if whether or not the man comes third it doesn't imply that you're being loved less. Let's. I think we should get that out of the way. Whether or not a man eats the smallest meat or the biggest meat in the pot doesn't imply that they are loved more or they are loved the less. For me, if I have a wife and I have kids and neither my wife or kids have eaten, I have no business eating when they haven't eaten. It's just a personal mentality I have. I don't think should be used as a yardstick to how much I'm being loved by either person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not married, and so I don't.
I wanted to create
I don't know
a
if
different
I have
scenario. I wanted to create a different scenario. Now, the scenario I wanted to create was in a situation where you have a girlfriend or you're in a relationship. You understand? Do you think that your girl would do XYZ for you if you're not given, material thing? Would she still love you, to that extent? Be honest with me.
So I think we need to be very realistic, when it comes to this relationship things, right? And for me, relationship is about expectations, right? In some ways, right? It's about a lot of things. But I think it's also about expectations. Expectations in the sense that we are entering into this, right? And I have expectations of you based on my understanding of you and your understanding of me, right? And if one of the expectations that we've had from the beginning, the understanding that we have from the beginning is that I will provide certain things and you meet me maybe halfway, you get what I'm saying, right? If that's the expectation from the beginning, right? If at any point in time I'm unable to meet my expectation to whatever degree, right? One of the reactions that we should expect from the other person is some sense of disappointment or letdown, or how they channel that is now different completely. Do you get what I mean? But to say that if a man does not provide, will the girlfriend still love him? I don't know. That question for me is like it's a tricky question.
Well,
trying to frame
so
it.
let me quickly put this so I don't forget.
Yeah.
Would you believe me if I say that women might have XYZ amount of money and find love easily, but men, on the other hand, if you don't have, material cash, it's difficult to.
Well, it's harder for you as a man when you can't, let me say financially, when you don't bring a lot to the table financially, it's harder for you as a man. It's just what I've seen happen time and time again. And It's just what it is. We have to say it as it is. There's no how we want to paint it.
Yeah.
Even me as a man, if I'm not financially stable, I wouldn't feel the urge to want to be in a relationship with somebody.
Okay.
Because
But
even
that's
me-
not. It's not. It's a
even
different
myself,
case with the woman.
I
Yeah.
don't really like myself like that. Like, bro,
But it's a
God
different
knows.
case with the woman. So
But-
there's always something to give.
As a woman, a man wouldn't mind falling in love with you when you're not financially stable. But as a man, it's gonna be hard. Life is not what we see in the movies. We see in the film where this princess sees this broke farmer's son and then takes a liking to him. But in real life, it doesn't happen like that. Man, the women want to see that you have some level of financial freedom. You can call the shots in some certain aspects, and it's just what it is.
So it
Just
still
take it.
comes back, TJ, and also I know you're going to counter this, but it comes back to the point that, in the real life situation, for most of the population, that men are only loved only when you provide, for most times, when you provide something, when you bring something to the table, materially.
Sorry, can I
Yeah.
can I chip in something? Now, I would dispute this comment when you say only loved. Now,
Mostly loved.
I would
Mostly
say,
loved.
Okay, say mostly.
Mostly loved.
I would.
For a larger population
This
of-
is my
That
stance.
takes me to my very first point when I
Yeah.
talk about absolutes and the fact that
Oh, no absolute. Okay, so no absolute. We're trying to we're dealing with data now. So for we can say, do we believe 70% of the population?
So I still have an issue with the way the question is crafted.
Okay.
Even if we say mostly and it is not only, in reference to men, right? Just the mere fact that you say, and this is a mere technicality, we can, ignore that and move ahead. But I just wanted to call that out. The fact that it's only women, dogs, and babies. I have an issue with the fact that those are the only.
Why do you have an issue with that?
Right, because there are tons of things that on one side there are tons of things that can be and have been equally loved as much as those three things you
Like?
called out, right? And on the flip side, there's been situations where these three things have been cause of terror and bad experiences for people, and they've been hated or not loved in certain scenarios. Dogs, you want to talk about dog rights and all that. Babies, you want to talk about the frustration that babies get. And why do you think? So there's a lot of scenarios, and I don't want to paint a morbid scenario, but there's a lot of scenarios in which these three categories of people or animals or what have you have not been loved as expressly stated in statements. So I think there should be a balance in terms of how even the question is constructed.
Yeah.
Maybe not just like are men only loved when they bring something to
Yeah, I think
Mostly
that
loved.
is a-
Mostly
that is a-
loved.
Thank you.
That is a
Mostly
better,
loved.
that's a better
Now,
Yeah.
if you crack that question, it takes away the distraction of the three categories that are on one hand, are they only loved, are they mostly loved, are they not loved? That's out of the way. And the question is crafted as are men
Mostly loved.
when they bring something to the table
Unconditionally.
So, frame that question that way. I'd say yes, from a cultural standpoint, the expectation of men mostly, right? Yet we are evolving out of that, where we are having.
But would you say that's true?
I'd say to a great extent.
It is
yes,
true.
it is true right now because even men that I'm not talking about Nigeria right now, right? Or is it a generic statement?
But could use Nigeria as
As a case study.
case study.
Use Nigeria as a case study. I'd say because of the very, very much traditional mindset that's still in place,
Okay.
right? That statement is, to a great extent true within this our context, right? If you put it
See,
out,
let me even put this. Let me mention this, that as a human being in any sort of relationship or whatever, you should be able to provide something, regardless. Whether even if you're not providing money, you should provide. There's so many things within a relationship, or let me just say a relationship for the sake of my comments right now, that you should be able to provide in. If you can't provide anything, you don't have any business being with anybody. You should be on your own. You should be able to provide something at the very least.
As a man or as a woman.
Either one.
Okay.
Either as a
That's
man.
not always the case. It's not always the case with the
money. You should be able to provide something else.
so that takes us to that's my conventional expectations, right? Now, in the expectation, so for instance, there are men who are not particularly doing excellently well in life, right? But they combine, whatever effort and whatever it is life rewards them with a good attitude, supportive to their wife, and
I get it.
right?
Go on.
And are very inspiring and encouraging and all that, right? They there are kinds of women that they would meet, right? Who would take that, and because of maybe the woman is fiery and she's the one that's more entrepreneurial, there are situations, and we've seen situations like that where they combine forces and they do excellently well. And in that situation, right, you would not classify the man as particularly the breadwinner, right, where the man provides support and he's just a number 2 person, and the wife has a number 1 personality. In that kind of scenario, right, this statement particularly, so the guy brings support. He doesn't bring materials, right, particularly in that regard, right, but he provides support. So in some ways, he delivers on certain expectations that have
what if he's a carpenter and he's bringing wood? He's bringing materials
and in that situation, right, I understand. I'm just saying there are also situations where it goes beyond the material thing, right, where you are not absolutely a dundee in terms of you are not bringing anything to the table.
Okay.
There are situations where you bring something to the table and it's not fantastic in that regard, like compared to all other guys. But if you have a supportive attitude,
TJ, you are trying as much as possible, which I really do appreciate.
Okay.
You're giving us a specific scenario where a man can be loved unconditionally.
I don't believe anything is unconditional.
Okay, fine. Okay, let me just put it this way. In that context, yeah. But these are just mere, smaller quantity of samples.
Okay.
So our question was based on a larger population, where we said, which obviously you've answered me, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Exactly.
So yeah. So the question is, are loved? Are women, children, and pets
We took
loved?
out women, children, and pets already. We left that out. We said, are men loved most times unconditionally, or something like that?
Yeah, men loved unconditionally on the
basis of what they provide. No, it was actually no. It was actually we actually did put children.
We took them out at some point.
We took them out because we were trying to make a pointer to a love situation. But anyway, that's by the way. But I want you guys, just like we've discussed so far, we might not come to an agreement, but for a greater population, I'm going to rephrase it again. For a greater population of women out there, or people out there, you would believe or you would agree with me that mostly women and children are loved unconditionally compared to men.
I still do not agree with that statement.
Well,
based on what we've spoken about.
This conversation is unresolved. It's a very deep and lengthy one, but
anyways, I like you guys' submission, and I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, TJ, for coming on the podcast. Thank you, Bube, for always bringing words of wisdom. I hope I'm going to see you guys once again.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much. And if you have anything to say about this particular topic, if you believe that men are loved or women and children are loved unconditionally compared to men, please drop us a comment on the section. If you don't agree, put it down there. Let us know what you think. Okay? See you guys next time. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of This Thing in the Mud, please like, comment, and share with your friends. Or you can follow me on all social media platforms at uncle_don. That is UNKL_DON. See you next week.